if you ever wondered what a Subaru wagon would be like if it took steroids, it probably would look a little bit like this. The 2016 Subaru XV. We're inside the 2016 Subaru XV. Now the design language is that of a two-tone. And this is a high-end model, so there's a lot of leather here. They have kept it very sporty. I believe Subaru is looking for that younger market. They believe that the Forester already has the older market, and this is a vehicle that they're looking to attract young professionals with. Now, there's a customary 3 rotary knobs right here, if you're familiar with the Subaru interior, and above it there's a touch screen. Now, the touchscreen isn't that responsive. It has a little lag to it, so you're going to have to take a little time to get used to it. But it has all the basic function. You can pair your Bluetooth by just pressing phone and then going to settings and then looking for whatever Bluetooth that you want to connect. Now we have a Galaxy S6 Edge Plus connected to it. So we can basically go through the phone by looking through the call history, the contacts and the favorites. You can then go back home and you have your audio setting, where this is all your stations right here, and then you have your general setting, which you can split the screens, which is something very good, because sometimes you want to look at 2 things at once, meaning that you can look at your audio station and your telephone, and you choose those 2 options, and then you have your screen split to see both information at once. There's also a there's also a display right here above that shows basic information about the car engine and about the temperature in the car. So you're seeing how much mileage you're using, you're seeing how the wheels are being engaged and information like that, which is a good thing. They also put this little hood over it, which means that when the sun comes in, and especially where we are, there's going to always be a lot of sun, you can still see the screen. It doesn't get dull, which is a good thing, because there are cars out there that have screens like this and you can't see it in the day because it's too dull. The steering is wrapped in leather, which gives it a nice feel. I kind of wish the diameter was a little bit bigger, but then again, I mean, my hands are kind of on the bigger side, but if you have average size hands, it should be nice. There's a lot of buttons on the steering. I think I count about 15 buttons. I wish that Subaru had used less buttons and perhaps used a compound function. There are the regular buttons to control your cell phone and the media volume and so forth, but it's just kind of a little bit too much buttons, and it's going to take some learning curve. And especially if you get used to this type of steering wheel setting, steering mounted control setting, you're probably going to want to upgrade to a similar type vehicle whenever you finish with this one. Alright, now we're looking at the center console, and there's a little space right here for cup holders. And what is coming with now, it has a little adjustable thing right here. Well, it's not really adjustable, but it's more bendable to ensure that it can hold almost, well, any average size cup. Put it that way. When you don't have a cup here, you basically just put the cover over it. There's an armrest which can't be adjusted for height, but it can be adjusted for reach. When you lift it, you have your storage compartment in here for persons who want to put private stuff that they don't necessarily, especially when you wind down your window, you don't necessarily want to have anybody outside looking in and knowing exactly what you have in your car. Once you have raised this, there is a charging port inside. So not only can you store things, but you get access to store your charging port. So if you want to charge your phone and you want to keep it out of everybody's reach, you basically can put it in here. Couple things to note with the armrest. Ergonomically, you won't be able to have a cup here and adjust it because it's going to obstruct it, so you might have to put the cup at the front holder and then you do an adjustment. But I also wish that the armrest could have been adjusted for height, in the sense that you kind of have to lean down to really utilize it, especially when you're in traffic and this arm gets a little bit tired. There is a small space right here. I don't know what it's for. I mean, this is the key for the car and it can't hold the key in it either. So I don't know why Subaru made that small little space right there. Now to the front of the center console, you have your USB ports covered by these little rubber things right here. And you have two USB ports. So if you want to connect your cell phone to it, you can just use this USB port. Even though I advise anytime you're in a car to just connect your cell phone using Bluetooth. There's also the traditional AUX port for those of you who still not up to date and just want to connect your music device. You use your AUX port right there, and this is your knob for your lighter. Good. Now the good thing within here is that there is a little rubber surface at the base, meaning that things don't easily move around. So this is something that a lot of drivers are going to appreciate, because when you put things like your cell phone here, sometimes it just moves around and, you know, makes an annoying sound. But there's a rubber base that's going to keep most things in place when they're right here. The seats can be adjusted for height by simply going up or down, and the back of the seat right here can also be adjusted manually and easily. You should be in a comfortable position when you're driving this vehicle. If you have neck problems and you are very peculiar about the position of your headrest, Subaru comes with a nice little feature where you can basically get this headrest to be angled at a position of your comfort. Now, to go back to the original position, just push it totally forward and it goes back. Or you can just move it in increments. Alright, the back seats are comfortable, especially if you're sitting to the end. They are a little bit concave, so you fit into it in a snugged way. However, I would not recommend anybody sitting in the middle of this. It protrudes out. It's a very kind of uncomfortable feeling, unless you're like a 10-year-old or 5-year-old. The reverse camera is right here. Now, it's positioned in a way where it's protected by both the bumper of the car and the trunk covering right here, which is a good thing, because if somebody hits you, you don't want them damaging your reverse camera. These things are very expensive. I love the fact that this car has this protruding bumper. However, there are no sensors attached to it. And while we have a reverse camera, I kind of like if there was sensors. Now we're looking in the trunk, and the load bay is very high. Now keep in mind that the back of this car is a little higher than the front, meaning that it's kind of slanted like this. The drawback to something like that is that anything that you're carrying, you're going to have to lift it really high to get it up here. I'm going to measure how far this is from the ground. So the trunk of the car, it's about 2 feet and 4 inches from the ground. So you're going to have to lift something pretty high. The good thing is that once you get it right here, it's a flat load bay, meaning that you can just shove something right in. It won't fall down or anything like that. The car has this retractable canvas right here, which all you have to do is just follow the contours of these lines to put it in a fixed position or to get it out of the way. Traditionally, vehicles have had these little strings that they pull up and you take off and everything like that, but Subaru has made it very easy by putting this retractable mechanism right here. And you can easily also remove it by just screwing these things out. Now, the bed for the trunk is lifted by these little strings right here. It's a little bit tricky. It's going to take some time to get used to, because they're hidden in here, so you basically have to kind of go for the crevices to get it up. It's not going to be an easy thing just to get up like that. Now, to show you how committed Subaru is to giving you a high ground clearance, everything feels very high in this vehicle. Even the spare tire, there's no space in here to hold anything else. They literally pushed everything up. The ground clearance for this vehicle is about 11 inches. Now, that's very good, because there's almost nowhere that this vehicle won't be able to take you in our Jamaican terrain. One thing I really love about this car is that it has very huge side mirrors, and the side mirrors are mounted on the car door, not in this little area right here, which traditionally many side mirrors have been mounted. So there's a lot of visibility right here, and then the size of the side mirror allows you to see a whole lot in your field of vision, which is something that is very good. It helps you a whole lot when you're trying to reverse. Anybody familiar with the Subaru transmission of the past will know that Subaru has a tendency to be very sluggish, meaning that you have to floor the pedal to get the vehicle moving. Now they have used a new CVT transmission with this vehicle, and it accelerates pretty quickly. It's very responsive, well, extremely more responsive than previous models for certain. The ride is a little bit on the firm side. One thing I've always loved about Subaru is that they have very comfortable seats, so the seats do absorb a lot of the bouncing in this vehicle, but I mean the ride give and take can be a little bit firm at times. So I thought that the vehicle never necessarily had a whiny sound, but if you floor it, you're definitely going to hear that customary boxer whiny sound. Now it doesn't mean that something is wrong with the vehicle, that's just how Subaru engine sound. Alright, now we're off-road with this vehicle. And the good thing about this vehicle is that it provides you with a lot of flexibility, meaning that this is a vehicle that you can drive to work and also keep and drive off-road. It manages it very well. Clearly the center of gravity is going to be high because of the ground clearance, but what is good with the boxer engine is that it helps the vehicle by having a lower center of gravity because it is horizontal and it's placed basically at the center of the front of the vehicle, and it helps the vehicle to be as low as it can possibly be. Now you're going to need that when you're taking corners with vehicles like this. On terrains like these, I really appreciate the firmer suspension because you don't feel like the vehicle is dipping too much. You can go into a pothole and still feel comfortable in the sense that the vehicle won't, the ground of the vehicle or the base of the vehicle won't rub on anything on the ground. Alright, I'll go through something. This is a vehicle, this is what the reverse camera looks like. There is no trajectory to it. However, the camera resolution is adequate. You can basically see anything that's close to you. I just still wish that it had sensors, but I mean I can work with just a reverse camera as opposed to nothing at all. One thing for certain is that the fun factor in driving a vehicle like this is very high. If you're a young professional and you still want to explore and you want to drive around Jamaica and drive to the different parishes, you're definitely going to love a vehicle like this because you can go off-road very easily, and I mean you can stay on the regular highways and so forth, but I mean if you want to go to some of the nicest sites in Jamaica, I mean for anybody who is accustomed to our country know that a lot of those sites going to be off-road and going to take you on some rugged terrain, and this vehicle is definitely a vehicle that you don't have to worry. Whether it's about the ground clearance or it's about the fact that it's all-wheel drive. And Subaru have this thing where it's all-wheel drive all the time, meaning that all four wheels are engaged. It definitely gives you better control when you're driving in terms of taking corners, but you have to remember that it's going to use a little bit more gas than the average vehicle. While the fun factor of driving this vehicle is extremely high, you only have two options when it comes on to the gear. It's normal drive mode and low gear mode. Now low gear mode is what you're using when you're coming down a very steep hill like Steertown in St. Ann, and you're coming down that hill and you don't want to ride your brake, you put it in low gear. There are no paddle shifters here, which I know that the average driver would have appreciated because this vehicle is already so much fun to drive. Just imagine what it would be like if you had paddle shifters. Even though this is a Subaru and it has very good handling, I must say that I'm not necessarily fully confident when going around corners fast, and that's mainly because of the ground clearance, not anything to do with the engineering of this vehicle, because you have to remember that it's a high vehicle, so you won't necessarily go around corners. I mean, I don't feel much body roll, but you won't necessarily get to go around corners and feel totally confident, especially at a high speed. One thing about this vehicle is that you won't ever be complaining for power, especially when you're going up hills. The vehicle is ready to move whenever you press the accelerator. There are very few places this vehicle can't take you. The fun factor is extremely high and it's extremely versatile. Remember to keep watching Auto Drive on our YouTube page.